York County is so much more than just a stop for gas on I-80. 17 County is filled with unique individuals with unique stories just waiting to be told. Welcome to the 17 County Podcast with your host, Emily Perry.
This is 17 County Podcast. Thank you for tuning in for today's episode. Be sure to like, subscribe, and listen. This helps our podcast grow, and we thank you for your continued support. We would also like to take the time to thank our York County Development Corporation members, AgriProducts, Cornerstone Bank, Nebraska Public Power District, and Central Valley Ag. Without these great members, we wouldn't be able to focus on the growth and development of York County here at the YCDC. So thank you. Let's get to the podcast.
So today we have special guest Katie Berger, which is the principal of York Elementary School, as well as Chelsey Klein, who is the early childhood coordinator for York Public Schools, with us to talk about some really important stuff that's going on for them. But I want to take a step back, and in that introduction, you'll hear the words early childhood. Why does it matter? I mean, why are we even having this podcast in the first place?
Well, Emily, thanks so much for having us on today. We are both excited to be here. I am, for a lot of people know this, that I was a high school English teacher before I jumped down into the land of early childhood and elementary education. And when I started having my own kids, I had no idea what I was doing when they were little was so important. And as I have studied and learned and grown in this area, I now think it's one of the most vital things that we can do as a local community and as your local public school district. So early childhood education is just so important because it provides that great foundation for kids. And one thing that I have been telling a lot of people over the past few weeks is that 90% of brain development happens before a child is 5. And that is awesome and scary all at the same time, right? And so what we do before a child turns 5 is really, really, really important. And so I can let Chelsey kind of keep talking about why she thinks it's important too. But I really believe that everything we're going to talk about that York Public Schools has invested in or has sought out funding for really help benefit not only the students we serve, but our community as a whole.
Yep, absolutely. So I'll just kind of reiterate what Katie has said, just the importance of early childhood. I've been embedded in it my whole career, even before I went to college for this. You know, I worked in childcare facilities, and it's just always been a huge part of my trajectory into what I wanted to be when I grew up. And so just knowing that foundation of the brain and how important it is. And you always hear like, oh, they're such a little sponge. Like they're hearing everything. They repeat everything. There's a reason for that, right? Our brain at that age from 0 to 5, it is just rapidly firing, wanting to make connections. And the connections we make, whether good or bad, are what create that foundation in that brain for what they're going to use when they become elementary students, high school students, and members of our society. And so what we do during that time is so important.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And obviously you guys talking about it makes it very apparent that York Public Schools has prioritized this as well. So when we talk early childhood efforts within the school system, what all programming is currently in place?
Great question. And so this will probably take up the bulk of the interview, Emily, because there's a lot, and that is awesome. So we talk about the early childhood education bubble, because when you think early childhood education, a lot of people automatically go to preschool. And we do have a preschool program, and we can talk about that. But prior to preschool, we have quite a few things that help support our community. So the first one would be our early special education programming. And that is going to be through any referral that we would get to our system. And we work with ESU 6 and local providers to help provide that family support so that early intervention can begin in the home before they're even ready for preschool. And what research shows us is that the earlier we're able to provide that intervention for students, the more likely they're going to be at the same starting line as everybody else when they enter kindergarten. So if we're able to do early intervention from 0 to 5, they have a much more likely chance that they'll be at the same age as a typically developing peer when they come into kindergarten than they do if we'd wait until they entered kindergarten. If we wait until they enter kindergarten, now we have a little bit of a gap and we're constantly going to be working to get that catch up. So that's the first thing we do. And then I'm going to let Chelsey talk about our next two things that are prenatal to age 3, but that's through our Sixpence program. And one thing I want to note about our Sixpence program is that these two programs are completely grant funded. And those grants help provide the experiences as well as our salaries and everything that we have to have, the staffing that we would need to provide those services as a school district.
Yep. Thanks, Katie. So the Sixpence home visiting program, it's very similar to that early intervention special education piece. It's just not through that special education lane. It's through that grant, as Katie talked about, but we serve that same population. It's for that prenatal to age 3. And so we have home visitors they are required by our grant to have at least a bachelor's degree. So in that field of early childhood. So we know that we're sending highly qualified individuals into people's homes. It's a voluntary program. So families are willingly signing up for this. And we're going into the home and just providing some of those very rich, developmentally appropriate experiences that they may not have access to directly in the home, and providing that coaching to the parent, because we know parents are the most influential and those first teachers for their littles. So we want to be building their capacity and their skills as parents to be able to know, like, how do I help my child learn? Like, what do I do with this little baby that I just brought and wants to eat and cry and sleep? And so there's just a lot of things that we can show them that really help that brain development and help them be set off on a path to be right in line with their typically developing peers that would have access maybe to other experiences that they might not have. So that's kind of the bulk of that Sixpence home visiting program. Then we have a Sixpence childcare partnership program. It's a different source of funding, but it is also grant funds. And we have a coach that goes into some of our childcare facilities in town, some center-based. We do have one in-home facility that we do go into, and she is kind of that same role, but on the childcare provider side of it instead of the parent. She's going in and coaching childcare providers and those directors on high quality environments and interactions, and helping them find avenues of gaining access to materials to improve the quality of their program and connect them to resources and each other. So that's kind of the difference between the programs. Even though they both say Sixpence, they do look pretty different. So,
and I would add that I bet a lot of families at the child care facilities that our CCP program or our child care partnership program is at, they probably don't even know it, right? Because our coach is working in the background to help build that capacity so we can have that high quality childcare here in York, and then helping find the resources for maybe more training or maybe more development or maybe ideas on how to run it. So I know that I was at a center, and before I really understood and I was principal and in this role, I didn't realize that our CCP coach was working in the daycare where my kids used to go. So it's a great program that parents in town probably don't even know that their kids are benefiting from.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do have to ask, going back to the home visiting, how do people qualify? If someone wants to get those services, how do they go about doing that?
Right. Thank you. Because we are grant funded, there are requirements that a family has to meet. There's 5 risk factors is what they're called, and they only have to meet one. So you don't have to meet all 5 of them. But the risk factors include if they are low income, so that just might meet they meet the federal poverty guidelines or for free and reduced lunch. Another risk factor is if they have a premature birth, if they are a teen parent, and that is classified under the age of 20. Low education, so maybe they weren't able to attain their high school diploma, and then English as their second language. So just one of them gets them kind of their ticket into our program.
Okay. And then do they have to reach out to you guys, or how does that referral work?
Yeah, we can take referrals from anywhere in the community. Same with those early intervention special education services. Anyone in the community can make a referral, whether that's a parent, a medical provider. We've even had some from childcare facilities. They've had that conversation with the parent and said, hey, like there's this resource that we can do. So that's the same for Sixpence as well, or families that know of us can reach out. We've had a lot of family to family referrals where, you know, they have friends and they're like, hey, I'm in this program. And so then we're able to get in touch with them that way.
Absolutely. And one other program that I see you guys definitely are very heavily involved in is play. So what is play?
What a great question, right? I think that's like $1 million question in York. What is play? Play is preschool, okay? But we have a partnership, and I think this is where it gets really confusing because, and now especially for York Public Schools, we're at 3 locations, but our partnership is with Blue Valley Head Start. So Play Head Start or Play Downtown is going to be a preschool program run through the grant of Head Start and through the Head Start program. But we partner with them for our application process. And why we do that is because anyone that Head Start cannot take, so maybe they don't quite meet the income barrier, but they can't afford a parochial preschool, right? We would then accept them into our preschool program. So Head Start takes the applications, sorts through them, understands who meets their guidelines, and then sometimes they fill. And then when they're full, we're going to have everyone else that would not qualify for Head Start, or they're full and we need to take extras. And then we have 3 play locations. So we have preschool, and I'm going to start calling it preschool. We have a preschool classroom at York Elementary School. If you come, it's every year in August. It's like the shifting room, depending on where we have room. I'm very proud that our teacher in our building got to stay in her room for 2 years in a row. That's a very big deal. That does not happen. Normally we're moving her all over. So she is at York Elementary School. Then we have one that we have at the high school. And lots of questions about why we would ever put a preschool at the high school. And we agree, but that classroom used to be at York Elementary School. But because of our K-5 numbers, we had to expand a section in our K-5 classes. So we had to take that classroom and put that classroom at York High School last year. So this is the second year. And they're also, right, needing that classroom too. So that's not an ideal location for us to be for our district as well. And then the third one, and Chelsey will have to help me with this a little bit. The third one is at the Westview Medical Building. And we have been there for 4 years, 3 years.
So
I think we're on year 4. Yep, this is year 4. And so over in the Westview Medical Building, we do have some administrative space. And by administrative space, I mean some makeshift offices. And we have that space, and that's where we have our home visitors, and that's where Chelsey is housed, and that's where our CCP coach is housed, and also a preschool classroom. And all of our spaces are great spaces. We offer preschool with certified teachers that have a structured, research-based curriculum, and they do so many amazing things. But having them spread out across town is going to be a huge challenge. And I know we'll talk about the project, but I'm going to just give a brief bit a little bit. So because we're in 3 locations, our only playground is at York Elementary School. So every day we are busing students from Westview who stop by the high school, who come here. They do their 30 minutes of gross motor and outdoor play, which is awesome and super fun. And then we get back on the bus and we drop at the high school, and then we go back to Westview. And so for one recess, our students are spending 30 minutes on the bus. It takes us about 15 to 20 minutes one way, just by the time you get 3-year-olds, not third graders, 3-year-olds down a hallway and onto a bus and safely sitting, right? That's a little bit of a process. And then because of how our grants are written and how food service runs, we have to make all meals at York Elementary School. So we're making all the meals here. We serve breakfast in the morning and lunch for our afternoon classes, and we have to transport those. So play is a huge part of our umbrella, and it's a really important piece of our umbrella. But the locations are definitely a challenge for us right now. In addition, just not to, simple things of not having that collaborative time for teachers. They're kind of on an island and by themselves. And also supplies and staffing resources. our buildings were not equipped with everything we would like to be equipped with, right? Things like a sensory room for a student that might have some of those sensory needs. We don't have those in the high school and the Westview location. So we are making do, and we offer some really great preschool services. But this project that the school board has chosen to take on this fall is really, really important to our earliest learners.
Absolutely. And I mean, you kind of scratched the surface of the project that is underway. Mm-hmm. We definitely have established the importance of all of the different programs and some of the hurdles as well. And one thing that I'm sure everyone listening has heard about a million times is the bond project, mm-hmm. which would hopefully establish a little bit more structure within the different locations, as well as enhance just all the different programs that you have. So what all does that bond, include?
Yeah, it includes a lot. It's a big project. It's a big number, right? It is, and we are well aware of that, but it would do so much good for our students and our community. And so I'm going to back up just one bit before I go into that bond, because this early childhood education center, I think, is what a lot of people have questions on. Why would we have that? Why do we need preschool? Well, preschool has changed. I think back to when I was in my half-day kindergarten program, right? And we were learning about the letter people. And by the end of the kindergarten year, I was expected to know my letters, and I could maybe write my name, right? Well, at the end of kindergarten in 2025, right, this school year, our students are going to be expected to have basic reading skills, they're going to have basic math skills, and they're going to have basic writing skills. That grade inflation is what we call it. So things that we have taught in traditionally first and second grade that we're now teaching in kindergarten has occurred in our society, and it is because it is legislated by our state standards. So that's why we believe so much in preschool and all of our early childhood services. So that is a big part of why we believe this is a needed part of the bond. So in that area of the proposed project, you do have preschool classrooms, and then there's also an administrative area. And I think that's gotten some questions, but that's because of our sixpence program, our home visitors. It's because of our CCP coach. We need to have a space to even host meetings. Right now, we do not have a space for our early childhood program to have any kind of, if they needed to have a meeting with a parent or something like that. A lot of people don't like to go and sit at the little kid preschool tables, right? So like a conference room would be included in that as well. But part of our sixpence program is even bringing families into the school system and building that relationship and having an area just to have socialization time for young kids or events that we could host at the school. Right now, we just do not have the capacity to do that. So that preschool and administration really takes up that area of the proposed project. And then the rest of the project adds square footage. So it's going to take our school, K-5, from a 4-unit school to a 6-unit school. So we'd have the ability to have 6 classrooms per grade level instead of 4 like we have right now. We don't need 6 classrooms at every grade level at this moment, but multiple need 5. One does need 6, and we are in 5 and have 25 and 24 second graders in a room right now. But that's allowing for a little bit of that future growth too, as we've just seen about a 1.5% to 2% enrollment increase over the past 10 years. And so if that trend would continue, we would be in 6 classrooms in 10 to 15 years for each grade level. The other thing that the bond would do is it would just give us some more seating area for our lunchroom. Right now, our lunchroom is pretty tight. Our preschoolers have to eat in their classrooms, as you can imagine, when we're spread across town. We also don't have a lunchroom, and there would be a little common space that we would be able to do lunch in, not a full-blown lunchroom for preschoolers, but just a small space that they'd be able to eat lunch in the proposed project. And it would also expand our kitchen. Our kitchen makes over 800 meals a day, and they have the smallest kitchen within York Public Schools. So they are packed in tight. They have very little prep room, very little dry storage, and a pretty small walk-in cooler space. And so this project would give them more adequate space as they work to prepare all of those meals. That's kind of the project in a nutshell, Emily. What did I not hit?
At Cornerstone Bank, we are committed to providing you the best in banking products and service. With 46 locations throughout Nebraska, we are dedicated to serve you. Cornerstone Bank, member FDIC, equal housing lender.
Oh man, I think that you hit most of it. I will say one thing that I have heard a lot of rumors, I will say is probably the right term, going around about is that this is a childcare expansion and not necessarily a preschool expansion. Can we just solidify what the difference is between those two different programs?
Chelsey, go ahead. You have a great answer for that.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a very big difference between a childcare environment versus our preschool environment. Our preschool environment is, like I said, it's led with certified teachers that have a teaching certificate, and it's all in early childhood development. Two of our teachers, our third one is going for it, also will have it in that unified, so it'll have special education with that degree as well. So there's just different qualifications for, who is in charge of the classroom. The second piece is we have that structured, and I say structured loosely, that research-based structured curriculum. What that is we are addressing the standards that we know they're going to need to be ready for in kindergarten, but we're doing it through play. That's a big distinction I want to make when I know people are like preschool, like we want our kids to be kids, like we want them to be able to play and not have to do school so quickly. That's the beauty of preschool. And that's the difference between a childcare facility and a preschool environment is we are working towards those standards with curriculums, but we're doing it in the school setting in a play-based manner. And we're making sure that those are developmentally appropriate. And they just are getting those rich experiences in that classroom setting. They're learning how to self-regulate. They're learning how to interact with peers. They're learning how to function in an environment that's different than home or childcare, which are a little bit more loose. You get to have a little more of that freedom, I guess I would say, where here they have that freedom, but we're very intentional with what they're doing in certain areas of the classroom, making sure that we're hitting on those things like you will need math skills, but how about we learn that while you're playing with blocks and doing puzzles, but we have an intentional interaction with a staff member that's guiding some questions of like, oh, I wonder if. So lots of different things that kind of distinguish the difference between childcare settings versus preschool. But I did want to make that distinction with what that education piece looks like, because it isn't rigid. They are having a blast and they don't even know that they're learning the things that they are learning. But Katie, there maybe is something that I missed if
no, I think I would add, when you think of school, you think of worksheets, right? Like you think of paper and sitting down with a pen and a pencil. We are not doing that with our preschoolers. We do not have them down doing math worksheets by any means. And what Chelsey described is absolutely what's happening inside a preschool classroom. One of my favorite places to be is our preschool classrooms, because you are sitting on the floor and they are playing and interacting, and you're able to you're not guiding their play, but you're just asking those questions and you're getting them to think while they're playing. And so it can be such a fun place to be, because all the light bulbs are going off on their little tiny heads like, oh, well, I do wonder what happens if I put 2 more blocks on here. Well, I do wonder what happens if my towers aren't even, and so they're able to do all of those things just through exploration, really is what it is. So it's a really, really cool environment, and we have such strong teachers leading that. And so I'm really, really proud of our preschool program.
Yeah. So, I just wanted to once again establish that both are incredibly important,
Yes.
but the bond does more establish that preschool
education side. Yes. Yep.
So when we do kind of drill down into the bond a little bit, let's talk timelines. I know that we're getting really close to it going to the vote. So what does that timeline look like?
This has been something that has been on the York Public Schools school board mind way before Katie Berger stepped into the principal office here. They have seen that York Elementary School is growing. I would encourage anyone to come out to our open houses. Our next one is on September 16th at 6:30, and then September 25th. Sorry, I didn't have the next one. I'm living 1 week at a time here. Both at 6:30, and come take a tour of our building. Even when it's not full, I'd love to show you how creative and how resourceful we have been with our space, but it's just been time. And that's why it's been on the mind of the school board for so long. So for example, right now in an old computer lab, because we don't have computer labs anymore, all devices are in classrooms. I have 3 teachers that are all teaching our special education students, teaching in one computer lab, and I have bookshelves between them. So we have 3 different teachers trying to work with students that need some extra support, and they're all in the same classroom. And it is not ideal for the teacher, but it's really not ideal for our students who need that extra support and extra instruction. So that's why the school board has been looking at it. They've seen that gradual growth. They've seen how education has changed. When the building opened in 1995, they had 17 less staff members than we do today. So it has changed because we do need different supports in place, and we do need different types of instruction to make sure we're able to meet the needs of all of our students. So that's been a long process. But over the past, I would say year to 18 months, this has been a really long, active process that started with Dr. Bartholomew and I touring the building. And then we brought in a couple architects, and then we interviewed architects with the school board's permission. And we brought on an architect who helped us really study our building and looked at what education looks like now, what it's going to look like in the future, and what our needs are as a district. And then we involved a community group of parents and some community members that have no children in our school system anymore, or maybe never have, to get feedback on what is important. What do you believe about our elementary school and our school system that we need? And then we brought on a construction manager at risk. And that was a move the school board made this past winter, last December, if I'm remembering correctly. That was really, really important because that has allowed our architect and our construction firm and the school to work together to make as an efficient plan as possible. So we drew up one plan and it was really awesome. And then we looked and we're like, well, we could shave here and we could cut here and we could cut here. And actually over the past 6 months, we cut out 7,000 square feet of our original plan, which equaled over $2 million off the price tag. So we have worked really, really well together, all while involving community and parent perspective into that. And then this August, our school board voted to put this on the November ballot to go, and it's a $39.5 million bond, it's a big one, but it's a big project too. It would add about 70,000 square feet to our current building of 77,000 square feet. So we are not quite doubling, but almost doubling the size of our building to build into that future. The election day is on November 5th, so it is coming up really quickly. But between then and now, we have 4 open house nights where anyone from the community can come in. They can tour the building. I will give as much information as I possibly can and answer questions. And if those nights don't work, Emily, I would encourage anyone to reach out to Dr. Bartholomew or myself. We are happy to give tours at other times and answer questions. I want everyone to go to the polls on November 5th with all of the information, right? I just want them to know what the project includes and why it's needed and the process that we've taken to get here. So that's kind of our timeline right now. And right now we're really just all about getting that information out.
Absolutely. And you had mentioned that if people want to reach out, they're more than welcome to, if those times that our open houses aren't something that works for them. How would they get in touch with you or Dr. Bartholomew? Excuse me.
They can either call the district office or York Elementary School, and they'll be able to connect us with either one, or emailing either of us. Our emails are on our school website, and they can do either one to get a hold of us. And it can be him, it can be me, it can be us together. We can make a lot of things work.
Absolutely. So before we go, is there anything about early childhood that you just want to make one last, stress the point one last time before we end the podcast?
I would love to. This is kind of one of my selling points that sold me a little bit. And then I'm going to let Chelsey, because I know Chelsey has so many stories of how it's impacted students, right? And how it's impacted families. But one thing that always shocks me is that when First Five Nebraska is the organization that puts out a ton of research on early childhood education. And one of the points that has sold me on early childhood education is that for every dollar we put into an early childhood education, we're going to get somewhere between $4 and $16 in return in our local economy. And so it's not just about saving York Public Schools resources or money, right? It's about benefiting our whole local economy when we invest in early childhood education. Research shows that incarceration rates and crime rates go down. High school graduation and college attendance or workforce development increases. The need for special education and intervention decreases. So we are doing so much for our community, and it's all because, like Chelsey said, they're a sponge, right? And we have so much ability to help set them up for success. And not only is it awesome and so amazing for that individual student, but research is showing us that it's allowing our whole economy to grow and get better. And that's really why York Public Schools believes that, yes, we're helping the student, and yes, that is the crux of what we do every single day. But on a bigger scale, we're also helping our York community, and that means a lot to us.
Yep. I mean, Katie said it perfectly. I think that, I could speak all day about my passion for our early learners. I think that what we do these first 5 years of their life completely sets up the trajectory of what the next 50 are going to look like. And the richer we can make those experiences and the environments that they're in, the better we're setting them up to be, functioning adults in our community. I just think that we can't lose sight of that. Like, this is what we're doing this for the future of our community, for these little people that they are trusting us to make the best decisions for them and to be their voice. And that's our job. That's what our job is. That's what Katie said. We come to work every day to make those environments and those interactions the best that we can. And when she was talking about too, we're investing in our community. When we're looking at, those young families that are wanting to move to communities like ours, their questions are, what do you have for childcare? And what are your schools like? They want to know, what can we provide for those kids? And so I think we have this beautiful opportunity to really take what we already have that's amazing and make it even better.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. I'm 100%. If you can't see the importance of it after listening to you guys talk, then I don't know what to do. But so thank you guys so much for joining us today. Very important information to know. Definitely encourage everybody listening, if you want to reach out to anybody that is within this program. I mean, Katie or Mitch, or I'm sure Chelsey would be happy to answer some questions as well. You can always get in touch with the YCDC, and we'd be more than happy to get you some contact information. Or you can, of course, go to the York Public Schools website. So thank you guys so much for joining me today, and I look forward to seeing where this project goes.
Thanks for your time, Emily. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
In closing, we would like to once again take the time to thank our members, the people that help us drive change. We would like to thank York State Bank, Henderson State Bank, York General, Meade Lumber Company Incorporated, and York News Times. And thank you, our listeners, for tuning in. Catch you next time.